Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video I'm going to be comparing the V8 Defender to the inline 6 Defender to see which Defender you should go for. But before we get into this video, a huge shout out and thank you to the Land Rover here in Lehi, Utah for giving me some time with this V8 Defender. This particular one is available for sale for the time being, so if you're interested, I'll include a link to their inventory in the description down below so you can check out the other stuff they have as well. If you have any questions, just ask for Jordan. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Starting out of the hood of the V8, we have a supercharged 5-liter V8 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It is good for 518 horsepower and then 461 pound-feet of torque. Now with the inline 6 Defender, it is a turbocharged 3-liter inline 6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 395 horsepower and then 406 pound-feet of torque. Now we'll see about the acceleration difference later in the video, but when it comes to fuel economy difference, what I've seen with most V8 Defenders is people are able to get somewhere between like 13 to 15 miles per gallon on average, whereas with the inline 6 Defender, they're able to get closer to like 17, 18 miles per gallon. So there's a slight difference, not as much as you'd think though. Now before we go over the rest of the vehicles, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Since these are both Defenders, I'm just going to point out the key differences between both of the vehicles. So first off, what you notice with the V8 is that all the coloration here on the V8 on the front end is darker compared to the inline 6 Defender. And notice we've got like plastic cladding there with the inline 6, whereas the V8, we've got this like robust looking skid plate underneath. You got the tow hook as well, so it looks a little bit more aggressive. Now both of these Defenders have air suspension on the V8. It's standard. On the inline 6, it's an option. You have to add certain packages. It does come standard, but because they both have air suspension, they both have the same 11.5 inches of ground clearance. Now another big difference to notice is that my inline 6 Defender has the Explorer pack, as you can see, with all this cool gear. You can't get that in the V8. You can get something called the Country pack, which will basically add these larger fender flares and then mud flaps, but the Explorer pack isn't available. Now I don't know if you can add the Explorer pack after the fact, but I just know that it's not a factory option on the V8. Another big difference is the tire and wheel setup. So with this V8, we've got 22-inch wheels. If you guys are wondering, the setup is 275, 45, 22. Whereas with the inline 6, we got 19-inch wheels. Setup is 255, 65, 19. So what that means is more sidewall here, but the tires over on the V8 are actually wider, which kind of makes sense, right? You've got to be able to put down that power. And notice with the brake caliper and rotor with the V8, it's quite a bit bigger than the inline 6. So with the inline 6 Defender, the smallest wheel you can fit is a 19-inch wheel, whereas with the V8, the smallest wheel you can fit is a 20-inch wheel. Now with the V8, we have this cool like Defender accent piece, and then with the inline 6, that's where the snorkel goes. So I'm wondering if you could still put the snorkel on the V8, just remove that. Anyways, we have a V8 badge right here on the side of the V8, and then notice here with the cladding on the bottom, it's body painted, whereas with the inline 6, it's like plasticky looking. Now again, you can get everything body painted on the inline 6, but because this has the Explorer pack, it kind of has the more like, I guess, rugged slash cheap plasticky SUV look, which I personally prefer. But notice stuff like the mirrors and everything, those are all the same. Roof rails are different though. This one just has the caps, whereas mine obviously has the whole rack system, but the rails themselves are completely different. Now the key fobs themselves are identical with both the vehicles. Another big difference is actually the taillights. So notice with the V8, they're a lot darker. Now there is a package on the regular Defender that's called the X package basically, and that will make a regular Defender look like the V8 Defender. So the best way to look at the V8 Defender is it's basically a Defender X with a V8 thrown under the hood. Now another big difference is going to be the exhaust tips with the V8 versus the inline 6. Both of them have pretty big mufflers. Look how big those mud flaps are. Now I got the body painted spare tire carrier. You can get that on the V8 as well. This one just doesn't happen to have it. And now popping inside, this is another key difference. Now this is probably not going to show up on camera too well. It's going to be something that you'd have to feel in person, but the leather trim in both of these is significantly different. So with the inline 6 here, you got kind of more of like a cowhide feel and texture with the leather, so it's not as soft, which I personally prefer. I know not everyone does, but that's me personally. Whereas the V8, the leather has kind of more of like a sumptuous feel to it, if that makes sense, especially with the seats. You can see, I think you can see on camera, the seats are like smoother with the leather. So just a little bit softer with the leather that's used in the V8. And then popping to the front of the V8, you'll notice that that leather trim and everything continues. Same thing here with the seats, as you can see. And then notice the pedals. That's another difference I've noticed. Paddle shifters here on the back of the V8, as well as an Alcantara steering wheel. And then something else I want to show you guys is bigger infotainment screen here with the V8, actually, compared to my inline 6. You can get the screen in the inline 6, but it's actually kind of hard because Land Rover seems to be reserving this larger screen for the V8 Defenders because people obviously pay more for them. All this tech here in the center, it's identical with both of them. This V8 has the camera mirror. That's kind of another difference with it. Both of them have the digital gauge cluster, but I'll quickly show you guys the inline 6 to show you the difference. And then again, yeah, you've got that like same leather trim, or not same, but different leather trim here with the V8 on the dash and everything. And then popping over to the inline 6, again, just a different feel, like I said, with all of the leather throughout the interior. And then you guys will notice the pedals definitely don't have the same cool look. And then with the steering wheel, right, a little bit more base with the appearance. And then you guys can see here, still digital gauge cluster, smaller infotainment system though, significantly smaller. All the controls here in the center are the same. No camera mirror with this either. So very similar interior, but you know, a few differences. Now, when it comes to pricing, my Defender stickered for $85,000. The Explorer Pack tax on another $5,000. Now, if I did not get the satin paint protection film or the Explorer Pack, then my Defender would have only stickered for about $80,000. Now, if you get a Defender X, which would basically be the V8 Defender with an inline 6, that's going to be about $100,000. So the V8 Defender being just over $120,000 is about a $20-ish thousand price premium over an inline 6 Defender. With that being said, let's drive them back to back and see what the differences are. Now let's talk about visibility here in the V8 Defender. You guys can see visibility of the hood, both of the mirrors throughout the rest of the rear, and also heads-up display with the V8 Defender as well. And, well, let's set off here on the V8 Defender. And I don't know, put a quick disclaimer. I'm using this clip for my V8 Defender review and for my comparison with my inline 6 Defender review. Just how things go with time constraints that I have with filming these videos and everything. But, you know, I'm sure with how YouTube works, some of you will only see the comparison and others of you will only see the V8 Defender review. But anyway, setting off in the V8, just like other Defenders, really smooth in terms of the ride quality. Again, this has 22-inch wheels, which is going to make the Defender ride a little bit rougher, right? Because we've got less sidewall on the tires, a little bit more wheel. But still, with the air suspension, it's really smooth. Now, the V8 sounds amazing. We are just in the normal mode, or comfort program, actually. That's what it says. We'll pop it into dynamic in a little bit. But now turn right. I guess it has a navigation on. So, but yeah, I mean, you guys can see their ride quality is really good. Again, even though this has 22s, ride quality is great. We're gonna punch it here. Oh man, the V8, this thing picks up. That wasn't even dynamic. So we'll pop it in dynamic once we turn around here. But seat comfort's really good with the V8 as well. Now, although the leather is really soft here in the V8, I'm surprised that the seats don't feel like way more comfortable than the seats in my Defender, because mine has like the base leather seats, if you could call leather seats base, right? Now, some other stuff, steering, it feels just normal Defender-like. So the Defender is unibody with independent front rear suspension, and so it actually handles really well, despite the fact that it's a, you know, big, bulky off-road SUV. And we'll turn in here. So this is where we'll change drive modes to dynamic. Really easy to change the drive mode of the Defender once you get used to it. Instantly geared down, got a little bit more aggressive. Air suspension feels a little bit firmer too. Sounds so good. This V8, yeah, it's a fun sound, that is for sure. I like the feeling of the steering wheel, but one thing I will say is Alcantara is hard to keep up over time. Maintenance with it. Wow, that's good. Thing about the V8 though is it doesn't have an insane axle ratio, and so again, it'll be interesting to drive my Defender back to back with this for the comparison video. But this feels quick. It's definitely quicker than the inline 6, but I'm wondering, like, from the seat, does it feel that much quicker? That's what's going to be the most interesting for me to see. But I guess setting things up here with the V8 Defender, I think it looks really cool because it's a Defender. Interior is really nice. The leather here, obviously getting the upgraded leather, definitely feels more luxury car, but it also somewhat, this might sound really weird, but almost somewhat feels out of place because, well, first off, oh, Okay, wow, that's pretty crazy. It feels somewhat out of place because this is like a more utilitarian type vehicle, and so having like super nice leather like this is kind of weird. The Defenders with the cheaper interiors almost like make more sense. I know it sounds weird, but that's just how it is. So what I will say is, so when you're up and moving already with the V8, it doesn't feel insane with the, it's quick. It doesn't feel insane with the acceleration. It's when you're at a dead stop that it hits really hard. That's where this feels pretty crazy, where I think it's going to probably feel way quicker than the inline-6. But once you're already up and moving, yeah, it's not as crazy as I would expect. But let me know what you guys think about the V8 Defender. I still think this thing is super cool. And I mean, you know, the vehicle that people always compare this to is the G-Wagon, right? And I mean, this fully loaded is less money than a base G550. And I can tell you this is way quicker than a base G550 because this has like over 100 horsepower more than a G550. $20,000 less. It's so crazy, Mercedes prices. But let me know what you guys think about this V8. Well, when it comes to visibility here in my Defender, it's, well, identical, other than I don't have a heads-up display, obviously. But yeah, visibility is all the same. And so let's set off, and this is where I'm going to talk about all of my little comparisons with Defender V versus Defender, and I'll see if I regret going for the inline-6, right? Should I have spent the extra money and gone for the V8? And first off, what I will say is this does feel a little bit softer than the V8, and I think a big part of that is just there's stupid tripod. A big part of that is just because there's a little bit more sidewall with the tires, and so it kind of helps out with the ride quality a bit. But it's not a huge difference, frankly. Like they're both pretty dang similar. Now, initially getting up and moving, don't really feel a difference, honestly, between both of them. Now, this doesn't have a dynamic mode because I guess that Land Rover doesn't expect people to do dynamic driving with the inline-6. So we're just gonna have to keep it in the comfort program. Now, when it comes to handling, this does weigh less. I forgot to mention that in the walk around. I forgot to do a lot of things in the walk around, man. I'm losing my touch here. But this weighs probably about, I looked at the door jam stickers, it's about 300-ish, 350, somewhere around there, about 300 pounds less than the V8. And I can tell you, it's hard to perceive a difference. They're pretty dang similar in terms of the ride quality. So there's not as much of a difference as, ride quality and then handling everything, it's all pretty much the same. Like there's not a lot different there. Now I will say with the seats, that V8 Defender had like 8,000 miles on it. It's a pre-owned one. So the leather seats were kind of worn in from someone sitting in them, right? That's what happens with leather over time. This is brand new, I just bought this. And so the seats aren't worn in yet. So the seats feel a little bit harder, but I don't know if that's because they're not worn in or because this leather doesn't feel as like sumptuous. So maybe it's just probably because the leather isn't as soft, but no complaints for me personally. Now in terms of the steering wheel feel, the Alcantara feels good, but I don't know, I think like in terms of like long-term wear and tear, I would prefer to have this steering wheel versus the Alcantara one because I just feel like this one's going to last a bit longer. We'll wait for this Volkswagen to figure their life out. You know what's crazy is this thing's so quick that driving this back to back with the V8, I honestly, like, okay, I'll get another acceleration just to like make sure, but I don't really feel like I'm missing anything with this. And I'm not saying that just because I bought this. Like, obviously I review cars for a living, and so like I had plenty of time to, you know, drive a V8 and drive an inline-6 before I ordered mine, but you know, driving them back to back again, it just kind of like justifies the original choice that I made with basically going for the inline-6 over the V8. And we'll see going through here. The bumps feel any different. Yeah, it feels all about the same. The V8 might feel a little, because it's heavier, it kind of almost feels a little bit more cushy over some of the bumps, which makes sense. The heavier you make a vehicle, that's just what naturally happens with them. But yeah, let's see here. This will be the, I mean, honestly, it's not that much slower. Like, it really, like, it is slower, but you know, from, what do they say, the seat of your pants, you can't really perceive that much of a difference. Like, the V8's quicker, it does sound better, but it's not as much as I thought. That makes me feel better about my purchase. That's for sure. Because I mean, this is just me. Like, I love the V8 Defender. I love how it sounds. And I'm sure that long-term resale value on that's going to be substantially better than this because, you know, V8s always have better resale value. But with that being said, I'm glad that I saved myself over $30,000 and got this one instead of a V8 because, like, I love the fact that, you know, I haven't done this yet, but like I can do a caliper conversion with this inline six and have 18-inch wheels, so I can get really aggressive off-road tires on this, which I think will look really cool. And then, you know, just like the Explorer pack and how I feel like this looks a lot cooler than the V8. That's just my opinion with the Explorer pack. And also, you can't get cool colors with the V8. You can only get like gray and black basically, whereas this, I got the Pangea green, which, you know, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think it looks really cool. My wife loves it as well. And so, yeah, I'm glad I went with the inline six, and I think the inline six is probably a Defender go for most people. Like, don't get me wrong, that V8's fun, but, you know, $30,000+, and I mean, if I got this without the Explorer pack and without the satin paint protection film, we're talking about a $45,000 price difference between this Defender and then that V8. I just don't think it's worth it. Let me know which one you guys would go with.